I grew up in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which is in Southwest Brooklyn, and it's got a history of being an immigrant community, so environmentally, it's just been really neglected and really abused. Sunset Park, as a community, is home to a bus depot. I think it's 2 waste transfer stations, 3 power plants, a water treatment plant. You know, it's like pretty much anything that you can say, oh, that's something that pollutes a neighborhood. All of them are inside of Sunset Park. My fellowship was really focused around video and environmental justice. There was already a group of youth in the community who were working through a not-for-profit to do environmental justice work, and so they were doing a lot of surveying and they were doing a lot of sort of organizing with more youth, but they didn't really have any kind of a media component. So concretely, I went in there and I was hosting workshops for them and teaching them everything about how to shoot, how to edit, how to, you know, construct a video, and then they were kind of taking all of that and making their own videos about the issues that they were already organizing around. There was something really exciting to me after college about being able to do something that was more local and focused rather than always kind of jumping into new spaces. Another thing that I learned was just sort of my own power to create something. I think sort of having the, you know, the Comptons behind me and having this like sort of open slate where I could do anything I wanted with it, and then seeing in the end like finished products from it made me realize how much I did have the power to kind of like create things myself and to, you know, to be an organizer in a way that I hadn't realized I was capable of before. So it definitely gave me a lot of confidence and sort of opened up to me the fact that if there was something I was going to want to do, that I should just do it, and it shouldn't be that I wait for someone to tell me that I, you know, that I can, that I just can go ahead with it. So I'd say those are kind of the 2 biggest things I learned.
One of my favorite phrases that I really love because it reminds me of my mission. I always say knowledge is not power, but the application thereof. So once when I got to college and really started reading and get a better understanding of who I was as a young African-American male, I started to see that, wait a minute, Marcus, you have a purpose. You have something that you're placed on this earth to do. My whole proposal was called, working with my mentor, the Griot Music Revolution, where we use music as a tool to change social behavior. My intention was just to create an alternative concert for young African-American children, as opposed to what they've been consistently fed through the mainstream media and popular peer culture. The open mics in the Griot Music Revolution is what we call the concept PPT, Poetic Performance Therapy. It's therapy. A lot of these kids, you know, aren't getting the proper counseling that they need. When they get up on that stage and they can release and people are applauding and giving them the attention that they so desperately need, then they feel like, okay, yeah, I don't have to smoke anymore. I don't have to stay high all the time to feel good and forget about all my problems. So what they end up doing is drawn to us as well because we're given an alternative. When I go out and mentor another young person, then I'm taking responsibility for everything that's been given to me, and I'm really able to now see a little bit what it's like to be in my mentor's shoes. Like, oh, okay, oh, wow, I need to say this at this time, or I need to encourage patience, or I need to give this constructive direction to this young person at this particular point in time. It's really a trip on your mind, but it's fun, and I enjoy it very much.
In college, I got really interested in how food systems and food production intersected with social justice, and then started to think about what could urban agriculture do for urban communities and for our connection as people living in cities to where our food comes from and to the larger system of food production. So I lived in the East Bay and worked with organizations in Oakland and Berkeley primarily who were doing urban agriculture, food production, working with teens to create jobs for young people and educate young people about where our food comes from. So I spent my fellowship year working with a bunch of organizations, all doing that sort of work, and ended up developing a produce stand, a community produce stand based at a new urban garden and nursery. I think this experience of coming right out of college and knowing that you have so much energy and so much to give and so much to learn too. But then I think there was this moment where I'm like, okay, but the Compton Foundation has given me this huge gift. Am I taking it and turning it into concrete enough of a project? It's really different than having a grant that your organization holds and needs to report back on. It was an investment in my personal growth, but also I felt like I needed to magnify this investment as much as possible. So the thing I learned that first year out of college with this project was that community-based change is somewhat slow. But it moves, and it moves forward, and it's amazing, and you can see it happening. But there's something about being outdoors around vegetables where empowerment isn't a vague term. It's really visible. When a little girl brings a watermelon seed to the farm, asks if she can plant it, and 6 months later is bringing home this huge watermelon, her vision and her idea about what she can do in the world is totally real, and is totally tangible, and is totally delicious, you know?
My fellowship experience was initially inspired by a project that I did as a student with a group of other students. Lorain County, where the College of Oberlin is located, is situated about a 40-minute drive outside of Cleveland, and Cleveland's had a lot of sort of urban sprawl, and that sprawl has kind of leapfrogged further and further from the urban core. Within the last 10 or 15 years, the community around the college and the county itself has experienced a lot of development pressures. And so I kind of did a project to look at bringing together folks and research and creating spaces for conversation to look at how folks could have more of a say in how that development happens. I guess the Compton kind of put some parameters and actually allow for some space for some ideas that I was already hoping and planning on doing in some fashion, but it just forced me to kind of think through the process and creating the proposal, and then created the space and the opportunity for me to do that by giving me sort of the funding to do it for a year. A big part of the project involved coming up with sort of a plan to sort of tie in a lot of different projects into some ongoing planning processes that were going on. And so a lot of it had to do with sort of various conversations that I would have sort of in advance of some of these events. There were a number of sort of kind of power brokers in the community, and there are in any community. And power can be sort of, wielded in any number of ways. In forwarding a discussion about sustainability or social justice, navigating that sort of power landscape and the interests that imbue that power landscape are some of the most important lessons that I learned from the Compton. There's different sort of interpersonal kinds of experiences that you can only learn sort of by having them, and the Compton sort of throws you out into that kind of an environment to test this idea that you have and to try to implement this project that you have and make the mistakes or achieve the successes and sort of learn from that. And the Compton creates the kind of environment to be able to do that.